What's up, YouTube? It's Jay. We're back in the shop after a little hiatus. Real life has gotten in the way, been super busy, but we are back and we wanted to talk about Big Betty, our assembly bench slash table saw bench that everyone has been asking about. Figured try and go over some of the things I did to it and maybe some of the improvements going down the road. And I made up a quick material list, and your materials may vary, obviously, depending on what size you want or what table saw you have. But figured I'd at least help you get started with a material list on things I used. And any of the things that weren't from the big box store, I'm going to include in the description below. I think almost everything that wasn't at the big box store was, I believe, Amazon. So we'll leave the links below for you guys for wheels and T-track and stuff like that. So without further ado, let's get to it. All right, guys. Well, I guess we'll start at the top. And I do apologize that my vacuum is on a job site right now and the top is a complete mess, but we could talk about it. So 2 layers of plywood, 3/4 inch plywood. And I got some T-tracks, and you have to get the T-track kit. Again, I'll include the link of the exact kit that I bought. Your mileage may vary depending on what size your table is, or what, you know, the length of T-track or how many T-tracks you want to add. I just did a simple square, but you do have to get one with a well, you don't have to, but I chose to get one with a corner kit, which helps if you want to slide whatever you're putting in the T-track from either side. Here, I actually terminated it, so I can't slide them in from both sides, unfortunately. But they're super helpful. And these clamps are great. These are called S-Clear style. I think they are import, but I believe these were also Amazon. So you slide them in, they're adjustable, and they clamp down on your workpiece. I could probably get something here to give us an example. And, oh, thanks, Matt. So this was an old cherry cabinet I got from a job. I'm going to make something out of it one day. So if you're working on said piece, whether you're sanding or whatever you're doing, these clamps really do a great job at holding it still. And I usually would put more than one on, but gives you an idea. And you can get all different kinds of T-track accessories. There's a few that I want to get that I don't have yet. You can make your own, whatever. This is like a miter guide. This is actually for the crosscut sled. So this is just a standard 1/4 bolt. And you can also get these on Amazon with the thumb spinners. The S-Clear clamps came with what I think works a little better. It's a little less annoying to get in and out of the T-tracks, is a T-bolt. Looks almost like a toilet bolt, which it probably is. But they work great. They're a little thicker gauge, and they don't seem to rattle around as much in the T-track, so I really like these compared to just a standard 1/4 bolt, because they have so many edges on them that they seem to rattle around and get stuck a little bit. You do want to keep the T-tracks clean. I have found that out. They get a little hard to work with if there's glue stuck in them or sawdust sometimes. I had an incident where our assembly table looked a lot better than it does now. But when we built Victoria, I had epoxy basically flood this whole table. And I just haven't had time to resurface it yet. And some of the epoxy did get into the T-tracks, so that's proven interesting for getting stuff in and out. But if it wasn't my stupidity of having epoxy leak in here, T-tracks are awesome. So installing the T-tracks, if you have a router, this just happens to be a cordless, you could have corded, cordless. If you have a router and a 3/4 straight bit like that, that's what you'll need to install them. I recommend taking small bites. Don't go down the full depth of the T-track at first. You're going to want to go maybe half of that depth. Clamp a straight edge onto your plywood. Use it as a guide. Route out a channel, and then continue your depth. You know, you don't have to go half, you can go a quarter of the depth. It's going to just be a little less strenuous on your router. So maybe take 3 bites, 3 passes at it, but keep your, you know, your straight edge clamped. Take a run, set your depth a little deeper, take another run until you get, I have the T-track just below my table. I think that's the best thing. I didn't want to make it flush because I knew that this table was going to get beat up and I'm going to have to sand off whatever, glue, paint. And so I left the T-track just a little bit below the surface of the table. I think the T-track winds up being about 3/8 of an inch high. So it's about half the thickness of the plywood. That's also why I went with 2 layers of plywood on this table, to make sure that since I'm taking half of the plywood away for the T-track, that I have another sturdy base under it. So that's what you'll want, a 3/4 straight bit. You can get these at box stores, you can get them on Amazon, and I will leave a link in the description. And just get yourself a router. That's the easiest way to do it. I suppose you could do it with a circular saw, although that would probably be a lot more challenging and take a lot more time. So your router is the best bet to install the T-tracks. And then a little bit of glue and some screws. Pretty standard installation, not too difficult. So here's an example right here of what your cutout will look like for the T-track. So this is a table saw we put in here. This is my 50s Craftsman Table Saw. And your setup may be different, of course, depending on what table saw you're trying to put in it. This table saw is pretty narrow. That's one of the reasons I got this saw, is because it doesn't take up a lot of room and I'm working with limited space. When I angle the blade, the motor actually swings with it because it's belt driven. So I had to make a little cutout here. When the motor swings up, it hit the bottom of my table. I also had to take a Forstner bit and hollow out some of the bottom layer of plywood, just because, you know, the motor swings when I angle it. So your setup may look a little sexier than that, but that's what I had to do. Cut out some channels here for my crosscut sled, so the feet that are on the crosscut sled slide in here and then can continue to slide here. I have a piece of T-track in there actually for the stop on my sled. I don't need to put it there, but it's just like a positive stop, so I know that that's it. That's as far as it's going. And that again was the same 3/4 inch router. Just routed that out at the same depth as the T-track was. So there's a better view of T-track right there, what it looks like. And without measuring, like I said, I think it's about 3/8 deep and it's 3/4 inch wide. There are some different T-tracks, but this is pretty standard. And then you can see how the bolt will slide in there into the T-track, and that's what gives you the grab for holding pieces down. All right, so we can give you a little peek at the soft white underbelly of Big Betty. So whatever saw you put in it, you're gonna need to build some sort of shelf. So I put the 2x on the outside. There's a ton of different ways you can construct this. I just felt like this was a quick way to build what I needed. So the shelf height, obviously, depending on your saw, could vary, but you need something to hold your saw in place. And then you want to make it, I made the saw just a hair higher than the surface of the table. That way, if you're sliding a board through the saw, it doesn't get hung up on the edge of the table. So, like I said, that may vary for you, but gonna have to have some sort of shelf. And then the under shelves hold some other tools that I use, maybe not on a daily basis, but you know, just great storage for tools underneath. I do have a knee stop here, which is really helpful. So again, I'll put the link in Amazon for this. Really helpful because the switch for the Craftsman is all the way in the back on the motor. And if, God forbid, you ever got anything tangled or your hands, God forbid, you're not going to be able to reach that switch. So the idea is that you can bump that stop with your knee. Even if, you know, your hands are on the table, you can hit stop if anything got ugly. So these were the wheels I picked, and mainly because they were reasonably priced. They have locks on them if you need it. A lot of times when I'll pull it out in the middle of the shop. I don't want it to roll around, so I'll lock the wheels down. And the other cool thing is they're orange. And if you guys haven't noticed, that's sort of a theme in the shop, is gray and orange. So I had to get them. All right, guys, well, we'll slide Big Betty back into her said position, and we'll talk about a little bit of the construction, and I will show you guys my material list that I came up with, and hopefully, you know, it'll give you guys at least a starting point depending on what size and what your needs are, what kind of saw you're putting in it, what you need to use it for. So yeah, I'll put her back and give you guys a material list. So, real quick and dirty lesson on how I put it together. I just basically built the box. I'm a really good artist, by the way. 2x4s was my box on the bottom and top. And I ran my 4x4s on the inside for the legs. Right? And then table saw shelf was here. And then on the bottom of the 4x4s is where I mounted the legs. So if you were looking at the 4x4, here's the top. The wheels I just mounted to the bottoms of the 4x4s. So basically just built 2 boxes and a third box for the table saw. And they're all on the outside of the 4x4s. Again, you can build it any way you want, but this was a quick way to put it together. So that's it. That's kind of a quick rundown of Big Betty. We'll leave the material list for you guys, give you an idea, and I hope this helped you out. And hopefully you guys will get some inspiration to build your own assembly bench and or table saw bench. And until the next time, we are working on a cool project. We're hoping to start soon. I'm trying to source some, I need a special kind of wood for the project, but my buddy wants me to build him an enclosure for an old tube amplifier. Well, not old, a tube guitar amplifier he has. So we're going to build him a really cool enclosure. I'm really looking forward to that. We're going to try and incorporate some cool stuff in there. So until next time, guys, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, ring the bell, that lets you know when we release new videos, and check the links in the description below. If you guys do any shopping on Amazon, that helps us out a little bit. We get a little kickback. So until next time, guys, get out there and make some sawdust. Always create.